Ladies and gentlemen, in today's video, we are going to be talking about the mystery man, the hooded figure that invaded the men's War Games match at Survivor Series 2025. We are going to throw out some predictions on who this individual might be, but we're also going to see if there's any clues currently available that might help us determine who this individual actually is. Since this is all speculation, I do encourage you to throw your guesses down in the comments of this video. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if the daily wrestling content that we upload here just simply isn't enough for you, consider coming over to the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap, where right now we are in the middle of finishing up the John Cena World Championship Series, where we are watching and ranking every John Cena World Championship win and loss. So come check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap, link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's get started. Let's start things off by talking about the hooded figure, the mystery man that has everybody speculating across the board, and let's see if we can extrapolate some clues to see if we can pinpoint who this individual might be. Unfortunately for us, there really isn't that much to go off of. Sure, I could sit here and frankly waste your time by telling you that I think that this is a very athletic or a very agile individual because of how quickly they climbed in and out of the War Games cage. Unfortunately, athletic and agile quite seriously describes like 99% of the men on the main roster in NXT, so it's kind of useless. We can look at the body structure of the individual, and that actually does help us eliminate some names like the really big guys on the roster, so we can confidently say that it's not like Talatonga, Omos, Otis, JC Mateo, and we can eliminate the smaller guys too, like Rey Mysterio and Tozawa. Not that any of these names were at the top of anybody's list. But even with the body structure, it's kind of hard to pinpoint anything because it's a fairly common body structure that you would see with many of the men on the main roster in NXT. On top of that, they're wearing a fairly baggy hoodie, which makes it even more difficult to see some of the body traits that might help us pinpoint who this is. But one body part that they weren't able to hide very well is that ass, because people have turned into CSI investigators and are cross-referencing like every man's ass on the main roster in NXT to see if they can create a perfect match to this individual's buns. Another clue that we might be able to work with is the fact that this individual can deliver a picturesque, perfect stomp. And of course, number one on that list is Seth Rollins. However, this is the WWE. These are professional wrestlers that I'm sure could master a move like the stomp in an afternoon if they really wanted to. So I don't think that this person being able to deliver a stomp as cleanly as they were able to helps us at all. And then there's this picture. A fan was able to get footage of the mystery man running away, and we got this face shot of the individual. Unfortunately, this also helps us in no way, shape, or form because WWE did such a great job at hiding all of the individual features that could help us pinpoint who this is. As you can see, we can't even make out what their skin color is because they are wearing something called eye black, which is what NFL players wear, what Batman wears, and what Kane was wearing when he unmasked himself. On top of that, I've heard rumors that this individual had white eyes, as if they were wearing white eye contact lenses to make it extra impossible for fans to be able to zoom in and figure out who this is based on this individual's eye color. So you know what? Huge props to the WWE for being able to hide every physical trait of this individual except that ass. We know that that ass gotta belong to somebody, and we're gonna figure out who it belongs to. Let's start off with the first suspect, which is of course Seth frickin' Rollins. Of course, this is on everybody's mind because the individual, one, attacked CM Punk, and we know the long history that CM Punk and Seth Rollins have with one another, and on top of that, they delivered the stomp. And this also wouldn't be Seth Rollins' first foray at returning back sooner than expected from an injury. Here's what I'll say. I think that there is a strong possibility that this was Seth Rollins, but also not Seth Rollins. The only way that this was Seth Rollins is if the individual that broke into the cage wearing everything from head to toe in black to prevent us from seeing who it is was just a body double. It's possible that canonically that was Seth Rollins, but physically it wasn't. Essentially what I'm saying is that that was in storyline Seth Rollins, and once it is revealed, it will be actual physically Seth Rollins, but in that moment, it was just somebody portraying Seth Rollins. I know that that's incredibly confusing, but I think I got my point across there. I think that that would be kind of underwhelming, and honestly, if they were planning on it being Seth Rollins and having the big reveal being that Seth Rollins unmasked himself several months down the line, I think that this would be kind of underwhelming because they kind of hinted at it and telegraphed it by having this individual do the stomp. And on top of that, if it is Seth Rollins that is going to unmask himself, this probably means that they're going to drag out this storyline for a very long time because Seth Rollins is nowhere near being cleared as far as we know. So my personal hope is that this is just an individual trying to maybe frame Seth Rollins, or maybe is a messenger of Seth Rollins of some sort, and that the big reveal isn't that this is just canonically Seth Rollins. I think the whole it's a body double is very plausible. I want to put that as one of the top theories out there because I could see WWE doing something like that so that they can keep the name of Seth Rollins active in storylines even when he himself is not physically active to compete. Mark my words though, if that does end up happening, not that the IWC is ever happy about anything, I think the IWC would be incredibly freaking pissed if this ends up being the reveal. We can talk about the other really common name that's being thrown out there, and that is none other than Austin Theory. The name of Austin Theory has been linked with The Vision and Seth Rollins for a very long time, since literally day one of Seth Rollins recruiting members like Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Everybody has had Austin Theory at the very top of the list of people that were going to join the Vision in some way, shape, or form. And what's fascinating about what we have here is that this hooded figure could end up joining the Vision, or could end up being a member of a different faction that opposes the Vision, which still leaves room for somebody like Austin Theory to be the hooded figure in either of those scenarios. Because sure, it could be revealed that it is Austin Theory, then Austin Theory joins the Vision like many of us were expecting, or maybe it ends up being Seth Rollins recruiting people to take on the Vision for his inevitable return, and one of the people that he recruits is a former member of a faction that he used to have during the Thunderdome era in none other than Austin Theory. And folks, tell me that that isn't Austin Theory's ass. Look at that. That screams Austin Theory as far as I'm concerned. Like I've already said, the body type is kind of hard to use as an indicator of who it might be, but I won't lie, like in terms of the size, the bulk, the athleticism of the individual, the versatility of being able to hit a stomp, which is a move that Austin Theory saw on a regular basis when he was working under Seth Rollins, it kind of screams like Austin Theory is the best available option here. I actually think that this is one where they don't really need to overthink it. Like, so many people were already wanting Austin Theory to be added to the Vision and for Austin Theory to do something big, something new, and they have it right here. It's on their plate. And this also might very well have been physically Austin Theory, but canonically Seth Rollins. That's also an option, sadly. Another man that it could be is a Carmelo Hayes, based on the beautiful super kick that they delivered to CM Punk. But I do think that from a body structure, I don't think that Carmelo Hayes fits this anywhere near as well as an Austin Theory, for example. I know a lot of people would love it to be Carmelo Hayes because a lot of people see this future of Carmelo Hayes being as bright as it is, and a lot of people believe that he is on par with somebody like a Braun Breaker. So him and Braun Breaker and like a Logan Paul being part of the same group of the Vision, it kind of works. And this isn't the first time that we've seen Carmelo Hayes, potentially at least, play the role of a hooded individual. He did this numerous times in his feud against Trick Williams down in NXT, and he played it pretty well. But I do think that the likelihood of it being Carmelo Hayes, albeit he could be a good fit for this, I think the likelihood is very low, because unlike an Austin Theory, unlike a Seth Rollins, we are seeing Carmelo Hayes on a regular basis on screen with his own storylines. He still has a thing going on with The Miz that has yet to get fully paid off. So for the reveal to it be Carmelo Hayes while Carmelo Hayes is busy doing other stuff seems a little bit far-fetched to me. I think that this is more of a hopeful wish that people have, that they're going to do something of meaning and of impact with Carmelo Hayes, more than it is a realistic option, unfortunately. Here's a name that we can actually take off the board, I think. It's Tony D'Angelo. Tony D'Angelo and Austin Theory were the two names that were at the top of everyone's list as people were predicting who was going to join the Vision, because Tony D'Angelo took a very, very long hiatus from NXT NXT, and we were waiting for him to show up, likely on the main roster, and many people thought it was going to be joining the Vision in some way, shape, or form. On top of that, the way that he left NXT was really ambiguous, in that he was having dinner and then this big shadow came looming over him and then it cut to black. A lot of people thought that that big shadow could end up being Braun Breaker or Paul Heyman recruiting him towards the Vision, and unfortunately that ended up not being the case. They've done something entirely different for Tony D'Angelo. Instead of calling up Tony D'Angelo, considering he's already been in NXT for like 4.5 years, Tony D'Angelo has returned, and it's right back in NXT, where he, I guess, has dropped the Don gimmick and is more of like an assassin or a hitman, which isn't actually that far off from what we saw from the hooded figure, so it kind of can work in that regard, but I just don't think that they're going to be moonlighting as an NXT superstar at the same time. We also had this weird moment where Tony D'Angelo was sending mail to Javon Evans, and the mail was like, I don't know, like pieces of like black like felt or something like that, and I don't know if that's a clue, like the black felt being, you know, the black hooded individual. Some people are trying to make those connections, but for me, I'm having a hard time connecting an active NXT member being the hooded figure. Now, I'm not saying it can't be somebody from NXT. I just think if it is going to be somebody from NXT, that it would be somebody that isn't busy doing something. And Tony D'Angelo is very clearly busy doing something, considering he's returned, immediately started a feud with both Obafemi and Javon Evans. So I don't think that it's going to be Tony D'Angelo, as much as people wanted Tony D'Angelo to join the Vision earlier on in the year. Yeah, we got to talk about it. Chris Jericho's contract with AEW is set to expire sometime soon. In fact, a lot of people are expecting Chris Jericho to return to the WWE as early as the January 5th edition of Monday Night Raw. Funnily enough, an episode of Monday Night Raw that I think will have the reveal of the Mystery Man. And I don't think that those two have to necessarily be mutually exclusive from one another. It's possible that we get the reveal and we get the return of Chris Jericho all in one. But when it comes to athletic and agile, I think that individual moved a lot faster and was more nimble than Chris Jericho at this point in his career can be. I just don't think that a Chris Jericho can move the way that hooded individual did, from climbing the cage, the super kick, the stomp, and climbing out. But that brings us back to what we were saying about Seth Rollins, in that it could be Seth Rollins, but not physically Seth Rollins, but canonically Seth Rollins, just like this could be canonically Chris Jericho, not physically Chris Jericho, because, well, Chris Jericho can't be part of the WWE roster, but nothing is stopping WWE from alluding to Chris Jericho with a hooded figure that might be Chris Jericho, that then is revealed to be Chris Jericho on January 5th. But then, like, what's Chris Jericho's tie to all of this? Like, why would Chris Jericho climb into the cage? Why would Chris Jericho help the Vision? Is Chris Jericho going to take on the role of a Seth Rollins and be the leader of the Vision, be the old guy in the Vision, like a Ric Flair was to Evolution? Is possible. It's not the first time that we would see Chris Jericho latch on to younger talent to continue to help further his career and help the career of the younger individuals as well. We saw it numerous times with the Inner Circle and with the Learning Tree down in AEW. So Jericho coming in and being a prominent member of a faction, maybe even the leader of a faction, is kind of on brand with what current day Chris Jericho is doing. But it is hard to picture the physicality of the hooded figure and like the physical embodiment representing Chris Jericho. It's a tough connection to make. But I think this is a possibility. I think that out of all of the options that we've talked, I think that this is maybe the third most likely option. I think it goes Theory, Seth Rollins, Chris Jericho so far. Here's another one that I don't see a lot of people mentioning, a Santos Escobar. Santos Escobar has been off of TV for a while. I will say that I think that hooded figure is bigger and bulkier than a Santos Escobar, but we've seen recently names like AJ Styles and Tama Tonga go on hiatus and then come back bigger, bulkier, and stronger. And at this point, Santos Escobar has been gone long enough where maybe Santos Escobar has gotten a little bit more jacked, and maybe a lot of that mass went to that ass. I know that there were the stories circulating that Santos Escobar was ready to leave the WWE because of bad creative. He didn't like where the storylines were going and where his character was going as well. And he has re-signed, presumably because those problems are no longer problems to him. And maybe, just maybe, one of the big character things that they have him doing is joining the Vision. And maybe that's what enticed him to re-sign with the WWE. I don't know. But hey, if we're talking about somebody versatile enough to be able to climb that cage as quickly as he did, deliver a super kick, do that beautiful stomp, Santos Escobar is as proficient and as agile as of a wrestler as WWE has. So you have to at least consider him as a possibility. I think for me, the biggest reason to consider Santos Escobar is those creative problems that he had that led him to want to leave the WWE. So what was the creative input that WWE gave him to convince him to re-sign? And if I'm told, hey, you're now going to be part of the Vision and feuding with the likes of CM Punk and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, and you're going to be trotting out there in the main event, that might be a good enough reason to say, okay, I like this character creative decision and where my character is going. I'll re-sign with the WWE. But that might be overthinking it, thinking about things a little bit too politically, and we might just be completely on the wrong track here with Santos. You can't really bring up athletic and agile without bringing up Montez Ford. I feel like Montez Ford could have been a really strong, likely option had WWE actually done something with the hinted split up of the Street Profits. Had the Street Profits at this point been split up, I think I'd have Montez Ford at the very top of this list, if I'm being honest with you. I think a lot of people see this like bright future singles potential out of a Montez Ford, and I see it as well. We saw glimpses of it in the 2023 Elimination Chamber match for the United States Championship, where everybody was on board with a Montez Ford push, and it just never arrived. We just sort of kept waiting, and then he got put into a tag team. Oh, they're about to break up, and then they never did. If they actually had broken up, I think that we could have been talking more seriously about this being Montez Ford. But as it stands, I think it would be weird for the reveal for this to be Montez Ford without WWE paying off why he would leave the Street Profits in the first place. I had said that I wasn't against the idea of it being somebody from NXT. I just said that I think it needed to be somebody from NXT that isn't currently doing something. And I think that kind of fits the mold of Ricky Saints. Let's be honest, Ricky Saints is not down in NXT because he's learning to be a professional wrestler. He's down in NXT until they can find the right moment to call him up to the main roster and for him to learn the WWE system. That's it. Like, Ricky Saints from day one is main roster ready. He doesn't need to be in NXT for very long. But when you look at what just happened in NXT, where they gave the NXT championship to Obafemi, this opens up Ricky Saints to potentially now join the main roster. On top of that, they showed Ricky Saints on the main roster on the most recent episode of Friday Night SmackDown, maybe as a way to introduce him to the main roster fan base. And now that he doesn't have the weight and the burden of the NXT championship, we might be looking at WWE transitioning Ricky Saints out of his role in NXT and into something prominent on the main roster, and this could be that role that Ricky Saints plays. Let's not forget that Ricky Saints has strong ties with CM Punk, who he feuded with. In fact, he was like CM Punk's last feud in AEW before everything went down. And he also has a strong history and legacy with Cody Rhodes, both guys that he screwed over in that moment, if it was Ricky Saints that was the hooded figure and did all of that. So there are easy stories to be able to be told. And if you want a very reliable veteran that is still a new face to the WWE to add to the Vision, I think that Ricky Saints is a perfect addition. Now, my verdict is I'm going to keep it simple. I think it's Austin Theory. I'm not going to overthink this. In fact, it's kind of on point that WWE hasn't delivered on this storyline, considering WWE refused to deliver on storylines revolving Austin Theory in the first place. Austin Theory is like the picture child of storylines that get dragged out for too long. And now I'm concerned that the hooded figure is going to be one of those stories. But hey, a storyline getting dragged out involving Austin Theory, hey, been there, done that. But hey, that's just a theory. I'm not gonna do that. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.